Hi, Billy Glisson with PowerCore 360. In this drill we're going to turn the shoulders and integrate the throwing action of the arms, shoulders, and scapula. It's important that the athlete actually learns how to turn their shoulders or their thoracic spine while at the same time making their arm, their shoulder, and their shoulder blade work correctly with the turn of the shoulders as they throw. So in this drill we're really trying to integrate his right scap working. We want the right scap to come down on the rib cage, so he's pulling that down on the rib cage, tucking his elbow, and then rotating around. So we're trying to integrate scap work with shoulder or T-spine rotation, if you would. So once again, just pulling the scap down, tucking the elbow, rotating around. While he's doing that, he's squeezing on a ball in front. That's locking down the hips and pelvis, turning on the lumbar spine. We don't want any of that to turn because we're working on also hip and shoulder separation here. Rotate all the way back, then he rotates through, gets good rotation there, lets the arm extend, gets a good stretch in the muscles underneath the scap, and then we're going to fire those muscles in the scap coming down. Tuck the elbow, rotate around, nice and slow initially. Head's trying to stay on the target. In this next progression of this drill, still sitting here, still squeezing the ball, lock down my hips and pelvis, torso harness with a band on it, resisting and strengthening those muscles responsible for turning my shoulders or my thoracic spine away from my target. I now have a band on my elbow and a baseball in my hand. Baseball in my hand to keep my hand loose, relaxed, but resistance now here on the elbow. Because it's on the elbow up through the arm, it's making the shoulder, the muscles around the shoulder, the rotator cuff, and the muscles on the back of the shoulder work really hard as I go through my introductory preparation phase for throwing. I'm turning my shoulders away, working on hip and shoulder separation, and it's now forcing me to use the muscles on the back side of the arm, the rotator cuff, back side of the shoulder to get into this position. So now I'm going to actually go through a slow preparation phase, and now I'm going to start to turn my shoulders forward and now allow my arm to come through. This band is pulling my arm forward. I want the shoulders to turn and I want this arm to come through at the same time. That gives me dynamic stability and helps prevent injuries in the shoulder by training in that way. So going back, I'm getting strong on the back side of the shoulder, getting strong rotating the shoulders and spine away. Now as I come forward, I'm working on injury prevention because as my shoulders are going forward and my arms coming forward, it's pulling forward and I'm working on slowing down, braking, or decelerating using the muscles on the back side of the spine and shoulder blade to slow the arm down. All right, so in this drill, basically we're still integrating the right scap work with the T-spine turn or the shoulder turn, but we're also now, we move the band, instead of having it a handle in the hand, we've actually taken the cuff, put it above the elbow, and now we're getting up into a throwing slot. So trying to simulate a little bit more of the throwing motion, still working on hip and shoulder separation, still squeezing on the ball, just doing 10 slow reps. Getting a good stretch, working on the deceleration there, and then coming back, shortening, going up into the slot. Wanting to make sure we're really cueing him here that it's lower trap muscles under the scap working and that the upper trap's not firing and raising the shoulder up. So this next progression is a little more advanced. Still have a band hooked on the right side of the torso. I've moved the band from the above the elbow to the wrist. Because the band's further away from my shoulder now, from elbow to the wrist, it's further away. It now makes the muscles of the rotator cuff, muscles on the back side of the shoulder blade complex work harder because the band is out further, right? It's just harder, more intense. I'm going to get more strength out of it, right? I'm going through the same motions. I'm going to take my right scap, I'm going to pull it down to my spine, right? I'm going to turn my shoulders away just like I would in the preparation phase, and I'm going to start to bring the arm up into the slot. As I bring it forward, I want my shoulders to turn and I want my arm to stay dynamically stable or controlled with the turn of the shoulders. And then I'm simply just going to let my shoulder actually pronate and go through just like I would throwing. And repeat that motion. Fire the scap, tuck the elbow, turn the shoulders away, bring it up into the slot, go through my throwing motion. As I go forward once again, it's helping me turn forward, it's pulling forward on my arm, and it's really working on the deceleration, the braking, if you would, of the arm, shoulder blade complex to work on the injury prevention side of throwing. Okay, a little higher progression in this drill. Now we've got the band hooked above the wrist, so it's a little further away from the shoulder, a little bit more stress, a little bit more forces on the shoulder, has to work a little harder. Same drill though. Firing the scap, tucking the elbow, rotating the spine around, integrating those motions together just like they would be when you're pitching or throwing. Still squeezing on the ball to lock down the hips and pelvis. All right, in this advanced drill, I now have a band on the wrist, above the elbow, and the torso. So now maximum resistance. I'm resisting the torso turning away, so it's going to strengthen the muscles around my spine responsible for my shoulder turn or thoracic spine rotation. Because I now have two bands here, I've really got a lot of stress, if you would, and forces on the shoulder. So the rotator cuff, the muscles on the back of the shoulder, they all have to really work for me to get my arm back and get up into the throwing slot. As I come forward, my shoulders are still turning, the band's pulling me forward. And at the same time, once again, I want my upper arm to work with the turn of the shoulders. I don't want my chest and shoulders to stop here and let my arm go across my body. That puts a lot of stress on the back side of the shoulder, the rotator cuff. I want it to all work together. So with this many bands on, this is a high level, higher progression for an athlete that's going to get into a good throwing position and work on the rotation of the shoulders and the motion of the arm. Coming forward at the end, once again, now I have more resistance pulling on the arm and shoulder. So the rotator cuff and the muscles on the back of the shoulder have to really work on being stable with that arm and that socket, the shoulder joint, if you would, as I go into the deceleration phase. All right, advanced progression here. Now we have a band above the elbow, on the wrist, so we've got double the resistance, have a heavier band above the elbow, a little lighter on the wrist. Still working on hip and shoulder separation, still starting the progression off, firing the scap, right scap down against the spine, rotating the T-spine, the shoulders around, squeezing on the ball. Just higher level progression here, going up into the slot. All right, advanced progression, once again, got two bands on this time, but this time as we throw and go through, I want his upper body to really flex forward and rotate just like it would in the throwing action. So I'm going to let him bend, rotate through, finish in that position. Still tucking the scap, bringing the elbow in, coming up into the slot, rotating through, letting everything rotate going through. Let that arm in front really straight, let it get pulled out by that band, so we really work on that decel, that braking action, and these muscles back in the back of the shoulder. Good. Keep your eyes and head on your target. All right, so just going to make some easy throws. In between a lot of the drills we do, we integrate or we blend one drill into the other, so it's actually carrying over into the skill of throwing. So for a lot of these, this first one, it's going to be just easy throws, maybe 30, 45%. We're not throwing far, maybe 30 or 40 feet. We're not working on velocity. We're just, now that we've activated and turned on some muscles, we want him to use his body in that same way using those muscles, but actually in active throwing. So this first set, 35, 40%, 30, 40 feet, 5 throws. Thanks for watching this video. If you want further information, please go to powercore360.com.